Hello, my name is Maureen Wincott and I'm part of the Cary History Society. The presentation today on the Cary Hoard is part of a short series that we are putting online about interesting aspects of Castle Cary and Ansford's history. Many of you may not have realised that in 2006, whilst builders were renovating a building in Paddock Lane, which is opposite the Market House, probably a building better known as White's Ironmongers or today Karen Christensen's Hairdressers, builders found under a floorboard a hoard of coins. The hoard consisted of 152 silver half-crowns, shillings and sixpences from the reigns of Edward VI, Elizabeth I, James I and Charles I. When they were found, there was no container with them, and the total value of the hoard was £6, 1 shilling and 6d, equivalent very roughly today to about £500, so quite a sizable amount of money. From the breakdown of coins, we can see that the vast majority are either from the reigns of James I or Charles I. And the very latest coin in the collection was minted in 1644, and therefore the hoard we can anticipate was deposited around 1645 or just after. So that means the hoard was deposited around the time that the Civil War was raging in Somerset. Castle Cary may seem like a quiet backwater today, but during the Civil War period, Castle Cary was on a major route into the southwest, which was terribly divided between the Royalists and Parliamentarians. Castle Cary itself was a Royalist town, and as such was very much on the front line. As you probably know, the Civil Wars from 1642 to 1651 stemmed from conflict between Charles I and Parliament. There were many battles backwards and forwards, but as far as Castle Cary is concerned, the most important date is probably 1651, when Charles I's son, Charles II, fled to France. His escape route took him through Castle Cary, and there are lots of rumours as to where he spent the night. Was it at the Manor House in Castle Cary? Was it in the Manor House in Ansford? Was it indeed in a ditch in Ansford? We will never probably know the answer to that. But in 1660, Charles II was restored as king. However, that wasn't the first time that the civil wars touched Castle Cary. In 1643, parliamentarian forces actually marched through the town, and whilst doing so, they attacked the church, destroying the organ and confiscating the vestments. Again, in 1645, Castle Cary was back at the front of the Civil War. This time, 5,000 clubmen gathered near the town. Clubmen were generally of minor gentry, clergy, yeomen, and so on. They were supposedly neutral. Castle Cary was deemed a royalist town, so in 1645, when the new model army marched through Castle Cary on its way to Bristol, many of the locals would have been very, very frightened. As mentioned before, Castle Cary came to the fore again in 1650, when it sheltered Charles II, who was escaping from the Battle of Worcester to France. Edward Curtin, who was the steward to the Earl of Hertford, resided at the Manor House at Castle Cary, and Curtin is said to have sheltered him there overnight. However, it's much more likely that he in fact hid him at the Lower Ansford Manor farmhouse instead. So we can only imagine the fear that the residents of Ansford and Castle Cary had as each one of these events unfolded. Whether it was the neutral clubmen, whether it was the parliamentarian force, the new model army, or indeed when Charles II came to town, any one of these events probably frightened the residents enough to consider either running away and hiding, or certainly hiding any valuables that they might have. So who was the hoarder? Well, the answer is we don't really know. The only thing we know was the deposit of the hoard is around 1644 to 1645. Unfortunately, we have no records at that time who owned the property. What we do know is the shop was redeveloped in 1804, although clearly at that point the shop floor was not disturbed. The John Ward map of the late 1600s clearly shows the building, but again, unfortunately, it's too late and doesn't tell us who owns the property. All we do know is that they never collected the hoard, having either been arrested, killed, or died naturally before they were able to retrieve it. The Hoard of Coins today is stored at the Somerset Heritage Centre in Taunton, and when I visited a couple of years ago, one of the most interesting coins I found was the Oxford Shilling, pictured here. It shows that the coin was minted in Oxford in 1642. This is quite significant because this represents the period when Charles moved his seat of power from London to Oxford. And on this slide, we could see the front of the coin showing Charles I's head. This coin is actually in quite good condition compared to the rest of the hoard, which actually is in quite a poor condition. The coins are currently being stored at the Somerset Heritage Centre. And whilst not on display, it's very easy to arrange an appointment to actually view the coins. When I did this a couple of years ago, I simply contacted the Heritage Centre and they gave me a time to come along and actually view the coins. The coins are actually held in envelopes to keep them in pristine condition. I hope you've enjoyed the very brief talk on the hoard that was found in Castle Cary. If you're interested in finding more either about the hoard or about the Civil War in Somerset, then here are some recommended further reading. Many thanks for joining me.